we may apply our hearts to wisdom. We ask your blessing on those who serve the people in this place. Many issues remain, and the solutions continue to challenge. As a nation, we need your guidance. During this session, help each member respond to the tasks that you have laid out for them. As Barbadians, renew our faith, strengthen our hope, enlighten our understanding, and enlarge our charity, especially for those in need. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
This House is in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 2nd of June, to be deferred.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the said minutes be deferred.
Second, please.
The question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honor, the Speaker. Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General. Petitions, papers.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to lay the audited financial statements of the Caves of Barbados Limited, CBL, for the financial years ended March 31st, 2017, March 31st, 2018, and March 31st, 2019. I'm also commanded to lay the annual report and audited financial statements of the Fair Trading Commission for the period April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019.
Government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Police Amendment Bill 2020.
Second, please.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of standing orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42 subsection 5, 43, and 44 be suspended for the remainder of today's sitting.
Second, sir.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day sitting. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended.
Government business.
Government business is the order of the day.
Order number 15, sir. In the name of the Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the second reading of the Income Tax Amendment Number 2 Bill 2020.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I rise to lead this debate this morning, sir, in the context that this government came to office, sir, at a time when the economy was in free fall. And as we came to office, sir, the country had not yet learned that the previous administration, sir, had committed to the OECD, and others to, in a sense, sir, dismantle what we refer to as the international business sector as we knew it. And you would recall, sir, in this chamber that the honourable member for St. Michael North had, in December of 2018, sir, having come to office and recognized what the commitment was to ensuring that we had changed legislation by the end of 2018, that the Ministry of Industry and International Business and Industry, sir, led by the honourable member for St. Michael North, working in collaboration, sir, with the Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs and Investment, and the rest of the government, sir, in moving with great haste to put the legislative framework, sir, to be able to allow Barbados to not be in a worse position than we had found the economy in, sir, at that time. And you would recall, sir, that in that December, which was, I think, on record, sir, given that as a newly elected member of Parliament, I believe, sir, and I speak subject to correction, that we were meeting, sir, almost up to Christmas, because we had to deal, sir, with those critical pieces of legislation, as well as others, to be able to ensure that as we were in the midst, sir, of rolling out and implementing the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, that we provided the country and certainly the rest of the world the confidence that Barbados, sir, will be able to handle its business. And whilst those 6 months were particularly challenging up front, sir, we recognize that at that time, notwithstanding the fact that the previous administration had given a commitment, sir, to dismantle an element of our economy, which over the past 30 years or so, sir, we had used as an opportunity to help diversify the economy away from what used to be predominantly sugar and agricultural-led, sir, back 30, 40 years ago, to the transition, sir, to being led by tourism. But in that interim period, sir, under the leadership first of the Right Honourable Tom Adams, sir, started to put what we refer to as the international business framework in place to allow for a different pillar upon which the economy would stand. And so, notwithstanding the commitment, sir, and just for the record, sir, and I know it's been said in this chamber already, but I shall repeat it here, that the decision was taken by Cabinet the week before the election, sir, formally, to commit the country to dismantling what was the international business sector. And so, sir, having come to office in the midst of a significant economic crisis, significant debt in terms of the debt to GDP ratio, sir, the fiscal position, as you are aware, sir, was in tatters. The reserves were plummeting, sir, and there was little or no growth really to speak of, sir. But more importantly, not that any of those things are unimportant, but the truth is, sir, there was very little confidence in whether amongst consumers, sir, amongst the business community, amongst investors, sir, that Barbados was on track. So we had to not just focus on repairing the macro fundamentals, but certainly, sir, seeking to ensure that we can restore trust in government amongst the various stakeholders. So I start at that from that perspective, sir, to give context for the amendments that are here before the chamber this morning. Because it wasn't just the fact that the previous administration, sir, had committed to dismantling what was referred to as the international business sector. But we were in the midst, sir, with respect to determining how we were going to frame our public policy by way of taxation, sir. And therefore, we felt as a government coming to office, faced with this clear and significant danger, that the only credible way forward, sir, in the environment in order to be able to maintain business in Barbados and to restore confidence was to also focus on how do we converge between domestic taxes and those taxes that were viewed, sir, as offshore or international business, given that those were some of the areas that were of concern with respect to the treatment. So the perception was, sir, that we were giving better treatment to a certain segment of the economy than the others in the context of the OECD, sir, the FATF, the EU, all of those international bodies, sir, with respect to profit sharing, sir, and base erosion, those issues that the developed world seem to be a little bit obsessed with, sir, in recent times. But having said that, we determined, sir, from a policy perspective, that we would converge our tax rates with respect to corporation tax, sir. And as a result, it meant that there were changes that needed to be rolled out. You would recall, sir, that in that context, we converged and moved what was the corporate tax rate, which was 30%, sir, at the top, having come to office, and the Prime Minister, sir, would have delivered a budget on June 11th, sir, of 2018 in this chamber, in the chamber, not this one, but the other one, but you get my point, sir, in this chamber. That would have temporarily increased the corporation tax from 25% as it was when we came to office to 30% in order to stabilize, sir, in the short term, the fiscal situation as we saw it. And we will recall that those were the emergency measures that we indicated as part of our mission critical response that we will be put in place in order to stabilize the fiscal situation. And so by December, sir, you would recall that that was June, and then having found out that the previous government, sir, had committed to dismantling the international business sector, we then recognized that it would have been particularly challenging to be able to maintain a significant part of our economy by way of contributions to corporation tax. That if we lose that, sir, that the mechanism through which we could provide stability to the public finances would have been compromised, and therefore that led, sir, to the determination that we would converge our tax rates. So in December of 2018, the new rates, which were converged, sir, which meant that we moved effectively from the 30% that was introduced, sir, in June, down to a top rate of 5.5%, sir, all the way down to 1%. Now the reality is, sir, that for a long while, and you would be reminded, sir, that there were tiered levels upon which those taxes would apply. So the more profit you made, sir, the less the percentage, but as you know, sir, that a small percent of a lot of money, sir, generally speaking, generates money. So least it be said, sir, that we give away a wash of money to corporate interest, which has been levied upon us. The reality is, sir, that based on our calculations and in essence, sir, the determination upon which taxes are levied is the key, because it would make no sense, sir, and just for the benefit of the chamber, I'll make this abundantly clear. When the tax rates were at the levels that they were, 25%, 30%, or whatever it was, sir, there were a whole host of allowances that were given. So businesses would be able to claim for all kinds of things as being able to write off against the profits. And therefore, what that effectively means is that even though we had a corporation tax rate of 25% for a good while, companies were in fact not actually paying 25% because of the allowances that were allowed in the system, which were legitimate, meant that the actual marginal tax rate was much lower than the 25%. So when we reduced, sir, the corporation taxes, we also eliminated, sir, a whole set of allowances, because as you would imagine, if at 25% and you had a whole set of allowances, which meant that depending on what you would have qualified for, would have effectively meant that your marginal rate would have been reduced. We couldn't then just move from 25 or 30 to 5 and leave those allowances in place. So I recall, sir, there was some noise in the public space saying that the government had given away all of these millions of dollars to business interests at a time when we were increasing taxes in the short term with respect to ordinary citizens. And nothing could be further from the truth, sir. Because if you take the time, and I've seen in another debate, sir, I will raise another matter, but if people will just take the time to read, sir, and if they have questions, just ask the questions. If you're not sure, just ask, rather than going into the paper and saying all kinds of things, sir. But the reality is, this government looked at the data, and determined, sir, how we would chart the way forward. And we continue, sir, as a matter of course, to strengthen our capacity to collect data, to mine it, sir, so that any decision that we make, sir, that we, based on the information that we have available to us, we can make the best possible decision that we can make based on data. But having made those decisions, sir, we continue to monitor and evaluate, such that if there is any need for change in policy, that it is on the basis, sir, of credible data, which you can come to the public, sir, and share, as we have been doing, sir, since we came to office. So we reduced the tax rates at that point in time, and just for the benefit of the public, sir, you would recall that what was referred to as the international business or offshore sector, as was known on the streets, sir, by ordinary Barbadians, a number of companies that were in that space were paying, sir, as little as 0.25% in income tax as part of the corporation tax rate. So effectively, sir, part of our response then, where we moved from, as I said, sir, from 30 down to 5.5 at the top level, sir, thank you, to 1%, depending on the level of profit that you would declare, to 1%, sir, effectively meant, sir, that for those companies who were paying 0.25% for the most part, and some were paying them based on the structure of the companies, of which some were insurance, which is the essence of the amendments before the chamber. What it effectively meant, sir, is that we actually increased the tax rates on those businesses to bring them, sir, in line with what was then regarded as domestic business, such that to achieve convergence, sir, the convergence is on the basis of the level of income or profit, sir, that you would declare, and therefore the tax rate that is applicable to you, sir, will be based on the level of accessible income. Let me use that term for the avoidance of doubt. Accessible income. Now, sir, the basis for that accessible income, depending on the activity that you're in, sir, requires a little more finessing. And therefore, sir, you would expect, and as people, I believe, sir, I hope, would understand, when we made the determination then, sir, you would recall that we had the stakeholder engagement, and we indicated at that time that there would be a period of 3 years, sir, for which some companies would grandfather before they will have to then come into the new system. And we committed, sir, that we will set in place a regime, sir, to be able to look and see what would be the appropriate conditions, if you like, sir, that would allow for those persons who would grandfather up until 2021, which, as you know, sir, is really just a few months away now, that period of time would allow them to continue to do what they're doing, sir, and transition into a new regime, given the sudden change with respect to how these reforms were going to roll out. Because as you would appreciate, sir, as a jurisdiction whose capacity, sir, is limited from a domestic space, we've always focused on how can we engage the world, sir. And whilst certainly the current pandemic demonstrates how dependent the economy has been on tourism and continues to be, sir, that is part of the thrust as to how we engage the world. Because I really view, sir, tourism as part of the retail version of how we engage the world. People travel and come to Barbados, sir. They spend some money. We earn foreign exchange, sir. All of the businesses that supply those services, sir, are in a sense foreign exchange earning through the consumption of the services that are offered to those who visit Barbados. And as you would know, sir, we have almost, last I checked, there were almost 800 or so thousand long stay visitors, and then we were inching very close to almost 1 million cruise visitors. So the reality is that tourism is a large part of the economy, but I viewed it as the retail side of how we engage the world. The other part, sir, was the commercial side, which is where we, since the early 80s, would have gone out and tried to bring business to Barbados. In the early days, there would have been some manufacturing. You know, you would recall, sir, that Sheraton used to be Intel. They used to make chips, sir, in my constituency. And the reality is that as the international landscape changed, our engagement of commercial activity in that instance also changed over time, because then it moved from those types of manufacturing industries into more financial services and as well as other things. So we have tried to diversify the economy over the years, sir, and even within segments of both tourism and the commercial side of how we trade, sir. We always sought to do that. And it is critically important that Barbadians understand that when we last left office, sir, at the beginning of 2008, our corporation tax take at that time was just about 500, just a little over 500, about $525 million or so, sir. At that time, in that regime, the corporation taxes were almost 2/3 coming from what we refer to as the international business sector. It was almost 2/3 of that, sir. So if you understood that that was the contribution just by way of corporation tax, at that time, of course, you know, sir, the last administration never really paid much attention to the sector. And certainly, for a whole host of reasons, sir, businesses left. Because either it became untenable to be in Barbados, others were offering better terms or conditions, which, rightfully so, people can choose, sir, where they can locate. Perhaps I think the biggest criticism, sir, is a lack of understanding as to how those businesses and companies actually impact the Barbados economy. I recall, sir, as a youngster, when I was a little younger, I'm still a youngster, a little younger, sir, that when I first entered the field of economics, sir, just about 20 years ago, there was a big discussion about what was the contribution of the offshore sector, as it was referred to at that time, sir. It was a big debate, because there used to be a lot of Wandor shops around the place that people never quite understood what people were doing. And there was a lot of misunderstanding and in the public, I would say, with respect to what they were seeing as Wandor shops, for lack of a better term, vis-a-vis the actual activity that the service providers, of which, sir, there are thousands in the country, who provide services to international business, whether they are lawyers, accountants, sir, management services, sir, a whole range of activities within the professional space. So whilst in the early days, that was a type of structure that was created, that also evolved, sir, to become much more substantive. And I use the word substantive because we have been accused, sir, of lacking in substance, when I think we have not, over the course of certainly the last decade, we simply have not done a good job of communicating to the rest of the world, whether it is the EU, sir, the OECD, or anybody else, that the service providers, the level of service being provided by professionals in Barbados